I just found 9 subscriptions I forgot I was paying for. Not small stuff, real money. Every month. For services I hadn't opened in almost a year. If you've never actually audited your subscriptions, I guarantee you're doing the same thing right now. Let me show you how I found mine in 20 minutes. Subscription clutter is different from everyday clutter. You see clutter all around you. A messy desk annoys you every day, so you just fix it. A subscription is something that sits on your monthly statement, charging you automatically time after time until you stop noticing it's even there. That's what makes it so dangerous. It never forces the decision.
So here's the exact process that I go through when I do my digital audit. It all starts with a very simple tracker that I set up in this spreadsheet. You can use any spreadsheet software or table if you want to do it that way. The intention is to have something simple, easy to follow, and easy to fill out. So mine's divided into two areas, one for the active services and one for the services that I'm going to let expire. I keep the number of columns as minimal as possible. So the name of the service, category, in the active section, it's frequency, in the canceled section, the status. I have canceling here just because this is real data. I haven't updated the status yet. Most of these are services that I'm going to cancel. So I have a note here that I need to turn off auto renew on these services. Most of these are services I picked up throughout the year, so they're set to expire within the next 6 months or so. So I have time to do that. Then I have the amounts, and using some fairly basic formulas, I'm able to evaluate the cost based on the month or annual cost. So there's a formula using an if statement that if the frequency is annual and the amount is X, it knows that it's an annual cost and whether to divide by 12 or to list the monthly cost if it's a monthly. So it's pretty basic. If you need help with any of these formulas, obviously there's tutorials online, but I would say even just ask AI. Even the free services like ChatGPT or Claude will be able to help set you up with a basic formula like this. And it just makes things a lot easier. So once you know what you have, what you are subscribed to, the next step is really deciding which ones you're going to keep and which ones you're going to get rid of. So in my case, the ones that I'm keeping are 1Password, which is my password manager, iCloud, which is my photo and iCloud video storage, HomeKit enabled. So rather than getting a camera that requires its own subscription, I prefer to do it this way. Next up is my home internet. It's with Bell Canada. It's a bit expensive compared to what I'm sure many people pay out in the rest of the world. But for 1.5 gigabit connection here, it's actually not too bad. Next up is Cloud Pro. Choosing which Frontier model to use, or especially which one to pay for, it's really subjective. In my case, Cloud Pro just works best for my use case and the different tasks that I do. So that's why I picked it. Contabo is a VPS service that I found gives the best specs for the most reasonable cost. So that's why I continue to use it. Descript is an assisted video editing program. What I tend to do in my last few videos is I'll do some manual editing through DaVinci Resolve and then do a final pass through Descript to help me catch anything that I might have missed doing it manually. Still getting started out, so I found this to be a good way to make sure I don't miss anything, and I'm still learning Resolve, so it works well. Gemini is actually more the Google AI Pro plan. I call it Gemini for short, just so I know I can distinguish between my other Google accounts. This is the whole package, so it has Gmail, Calendar, Google Drive with the 5 terabytes of storage, YouTube Premium Lite, and it's the whole suite. Of all the services that are in the active list, this is the one that I am considering whether to keep or not, simply because I am paying for Cloud Pro and I don't use Google storage enough to justify keeping it. So it's really going to be decided. I have until December. So I'm going to think pretty carefully about whether I want to keep it or not. I have a couple of domains that I keep ongoing. So I'm going to renew them. They average about $20 a year for the domain payment. I choose to go with Cloudflare as my domain provider. I find overall they're kind of like the best package deal when it comes to domain hosting, DNS, and all that. And lastly is my cell phone service. So here in Canada, I'm with Rogers. I have 5 lines on my plan, hence why it's so much more expensive than you might be paying for yourself. So yeah, these are the services that I'm going to keep. In terms of the services that I'm going to cancel, the first one I'm going to cancel is Fastmail. Like the service, but have decided to move everything back to Gmail just because I've also cut out some of the domains that I purchased. So I don't have as many to manage. So Gmail just works out fine for that. Squarespace is a really good hosting provider. Again, moving to Cloudflare for my domains because my needs are really basic. Most of my websites are static HTML. And so Cloudflare is good enough for me. But if you don't have a lot of web knowledge, then I would recommend going with something like Squarespace to set up your website with. Yeah. So next up is Super Whisper, which is a speech to text app. Works really well, but I found a equivalent that's free. So I'm going to use that instead of paying $90 a year. Quicken is a well-known, very recommended software for tracking your finances. I don't use it simply because I found I tend to do things more manually myself. I have enough experience through it budgeting at work to do everything through Excel or through a spreadsheet. So I tend to stick with that approach more than a fixed software like Quicken. And for my businesses, I use Wave. So it does most of the functions that I would use Quicken for. Amazon Prime, I've canceled the annual program because I don't use it as much as I used to. Cost is something I have to keep in mind now that I'm laid off. So this is just a purchase that I don't need to make, but I will subscribe to it monthly, like month to month, if I need it to purchase something throughout that time frame. Microsoft O365, similar to everything else, $115 a year isn't a lot if you're working, but when you're not, and you can use something like LibreOffice, which is free, makes sense for me to go that route. And I honestly don't use Word and Excel all that much to justify the cost of the overall package. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's not for me. Next up is Parallels, which again is another piece of software that I really enjoy, but can't really justify the cost for the amount of use I get out of it. I was really using it to run Windows on my Mac, and between self-hosting and VMs and stuff that I can set up myself for free, really hard to justify for myself personally the cost. Google Workspace is, so initially when I started my self-employment, I set up a business under a name brand, which I didn't end up using, but I purchased Google Workspace for it, just the starter package. Since I'm not using the brand anymore and I'm not going to use that service, I found different ways about it that are either free or a lot less cost. So that's why that's there. And lastly, Hostinger. Again, when I started out, I wanted something a lot easier to use. And what I found is that with the kind of websites that I set up, again, being mostly static websites, I don't need to spend that money on that. However, when my consulting business starts picking up and clients want to set up a web space, I will be likely to recommend Hostinger as their provider. So again, not a bad service, just for me, can't really justify the cost. So as you can see, a 20-minute audit, and I'm going to save over $1,000 next year. And, in the coming 6 months or so before the end of the year, I'll probably do another audit and we'll see there how much I can save in addition. So the point being, this shouldn't take you long. It's well worth the effort. And if it can save you even just a few dollars a year, better to be on top of it than to be paying for something that you don't really use.
So here's your homework. Open your banking app right now, pull the last 60 days, and write down every recurring charge you see. 20 minutes. You don't need an app or a spreadsheet to start, just a notes app or a piece of paper and a pen and the willingness to actually look. If you want the full breakdown of my complete numbers, it's linked below on unclutteredtech.com. Do this audit and let me know in the comments what you found. I bet it's more than you think. If this was useful, the best thing you can do is subscribe. I'm not chasing views, just trying to help people get more intentional about their tech. And if you've got a topic you want covered, drop it in the comments or email me. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.